There we have it, season 2 indeed. Donald J. Trump is the 47th president of the United States, but he also served as the 45th president of the United States. No wonder we are terming that season 2, except this time he comes in even stronger after an attempted assassination, and he has spoken about that on several occasions, speaking about the golden age. But there are concerns about the security borders that might get even tighter. He is big on Mexico, and he has spoken about that this evening. But also a number of things concerning foreign policy and how Kenya and the United States is going to be relating henceforth. And for that, I have brought in a very key voice on this matter. And I appreciate that every other time we need his voice, he is here with us. Onchari Oyeyo, who is an international relations analyst. It's very good to have you here. Good evening. And is it still a good time to say Happy New Year? I have not seen you this year.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah.
You have seen what has happened at Washington live. And a number of Kenyans, even before we begin, are tasking me to first explain why it is important that on prime time we have a conversation around Trump's inauguration and the Kenya-US ties. Just start with why international relations are very, very integral and vital for any other country, Kenya included. Welcome.
Thank you so much. The United States is not just any country. That is the only superpower we have. You know, of course, that is debatable because you'll find guys talking about Russia, talking about China.
Right.
But the legitimate superpower that we have is the United States.
Legitimate, you say?
That is what I'm saying, because you know, it's sustained its strength for a very long period of time. It's given us not just military might, but also the strength of its culture. Every young man wants to be a musician, wants to emulate American musicians. You go to China, that is the same story. You go to Moscow and Russia, same story. So it has a unique way of controlling world affairs. That is why they say when it coughs, the world shakes, or we catch a cold. So that is why I think there's a very, very intense kind of interest or attention that is given to every kind of event that takes place in the United States, more so elections. That is why, of course, when there's an election in China, we don't pay as much attention. When it's happening in Russia, we don't pay as much attention. But when it's the US, we have to pay attention. And now the relationship between the United States and Kenya has been very, very instrumental for both the US and, of course, Kenya. So that is why we have to be very keen on what he says, and obviously what he's going to do as he comes in as president. Of course, you understand the security infrastructure that we have here is supported by the United States because they have a very, very, enormous interest in, the Horn of Africa because of the war against terror. And they do all those operations most of the time using our facilities, our military facilities. And this is a network of, let me call it security infrastructure that has been given attention and a lot of resources for a very long period of time. So the question is, as he comes in as the 47th president of the United States, what is going to do that might affect the infrastructure we have? Because as we exist as a third world country, we don't have the kind of resources we need to fight terror on our own. So that is why we have to pay attention at not just what he says, but what he's likely to do in the next, of course, 4 years. He's in office as president. And
he's not new to us, really. He was very clear on the onset, even as the 45th president of the United States.
Yes.
Speaking of the security infrastructure apparatus, because indeed we all want a secure country. In fact, on our big question today, we've been asking, and we are still asking the viewer, if they feel safe as a Kenyan, and I still anticipate some of their feedback is coming in on our big question. Do you feel safe as a Kenyan? And even as we, go further into what now looks like certain things might change or strengthen, we have the counterterrorism funding.
Yes.
There are people who are saying or analyzing that Trump might as well consider scaling that down. I'm not sure what your analysis could be.
That's not going to happen. Actually, when you look at the funding during his first term as president, the money was increased. And the decisions he has to make as Trump, and then the decisions he has to consult Congress before he does anything. So, and that is the beauty of the American structure. You don't get to get your way just because you're president. The Senate has to weigh in on it. Congress, of course, has to have a say. And they have committees which definitely have to actually decide what happens. So when he was president, as the 45th president, that funding was increased. And that is the amount of money, that is the resource network which is not going to be touched, because Americans are very, very much concerned with the security and the security of their, resources and establishments all over the world. So if you reduce the money, it basically means you're exposing what they've built over a long period of time to terror groups. So that is something I think is not going to touch. But when it comes to, of course, investing in non-security issues around the world, it's going to actually scale down, because I think it's looking inwards. When you look at him, he comes off as isolationist. He wants to pull the U.S. back from the rest of the world and invest in the U.S. That's what we've been talking about, making America great again. And so I think security will not be defunded, but non-security areas will not get as much attention when it comes to American money. So that is what countries which have been banking on funding from the U.S. have to be very, very careful in their budgets. Yes.
And I want us to come to that economic structure, because he's also spoken on that as well. I'm just alerted right now that the 47th president of the Republic, or rather the United States of America, pardon me, is currently giving another very key speech. Allow us to cross over and listen in.
Like this, you've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got one negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You can be really nasty to a couple of them at least, So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop, but he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise he's our hero, because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You never know about that. I've been with other people. They were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at her watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between JD and Melania and anybody else that heard, please, sir, it's such a beautiful unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They say, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. No, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear. No, but she said, no, I think it would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy.
All right, there we have it. Quite a number of things are still expected. We will be in touch with, our reporters and correspondents in the United States of America, and to be more specific, at Washington, for any other activities that will be happening today across the United States on this day where President Donald J. Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Meanwhile, we continue that conversation on the Kenya-US ties right here with Onchari Oyeyo, who is with me in studio. And when you look at Trump speaking, comes out like an easy person, you might say, but talking to one of our very key analysts on governance, that is Professor Muluka, he said he might just come out a bit too blunt and abrasive compared to Joe Biden, and because we're seeing how President William Ruto was, given this very special welcome to the United States last year, the first by a Kenyan president in about 2 decades.
2 decades, yes.
Very, very special welcome.
Yes.
What do you foresee, in all the positive sense, would be the relationship with Donald Trump? And if you followed, I'm not sure you spotted a head of state from Africa in that inauguration, unless I missed something.
No, there wasn't. And of course, there's so much that was missed because it was moved indoors because of weather issues. Joe, I think, was a bit different. Joe is more of, he joins most of the American presidents who tend to be reserved, and I'd say, the term presidential. Trump is different. He's a maverick. He's out there. He wants to be himself. What I'd say, for the second term, he seems to be more comfortable, unlike the first term. And I think Americans have gotten used to his personality. He's just who he is. He's a drama guy kind of person.
Drama guy.
He has a background in entertainment. You remember the show?
And he has a Trump dance as well.
Yes. So, I think he's more comfortable as president. And now, when it comes to the relationship, of course, he's going to have with our president, I don't expect things to be very good. It will be very, very different. As we speak now, the moment this guy was declared president, when he won, the ambassador was very friendly to our president, resigned. Now, when you make a follow-up, you told, some phone calls were made, as some of these guys were told to get ready to be recalled. So instead of waiting to be asked, they just decided to throw in the towel. So, and when you look at what's happening here, we're talking about abductions, we're talking about corruption, all these things are being monitored. The United States has an intensive network of spies all over the world to collect intel, and it's not like what's going on here is unnoticed. And I don't think the Trump administration will have space for that kind of behavior. And they'll be very, very explicit with it. They'll talk about it. I expect that kind of message to be delivered in very, very clear terms to President Ruto. So I think it's upon Ruto to actually put his government in order if he wants to continue enjoying good relations with the U.S. So unlike Joe could listen, you give him some stories and maybe he nods and agrees with you, Trump will be different.
All right.
Yes.
And I want us to come back even deeper in the next hour right here with that conversation. But if you looked at the front page of our bold newspaper today, The Standard, when the United States sneezes, who'll get a cold this time? Let's take a short breather. We'll be back with the business news and sports news and then back into the conversation. Don't miss